when they pulled the body up, something they didn't talk about in the first autopsy was the circular compression marks around both of his ankles, just like the ones around his wrist. Meaning that he's possibly was handcuffed around the ankles also. So how could he run? Ooh. From what I was told, they caught him on the railroad. That's what I was told, and that's what I was last told by people that I knew, that he was last seen on the railroad track alive, with officers coming at him in all diameters, in a perimeter, from the front, the back, in this area. And there were officers that had already rode up by vehicle through the alley-like area. So there was nowhere for him to go. And I was told that they caught him on the railroad track. They beat him severely. And after they got so mad because he was severely beaten, that they shot him, the probation officer, Stemridge, shot him several times. And then they said, what we gonna do next? And they threw the body in the river. And that's when they say it was catfish bait. And that same thing. Basically say it all added up to he was murdered by the authorities.
And all of your theories come from information that have been gathered from a variety of sources, right?
Right, correct. A variety of sources, from individuals that eyewitnessed it and from individuals that work at the police department that either there or knew what happened from other officers telling them what happened and what they heard on the radio, that he was caught by Officer Chris Bartley and another officer and turned over to Roger Stemridge and Antonio Mitchell. So he was in their custody.
Right, and just simply disappeared.
So they say he just disappeared.
And what time was this based on your best information?
Well, Stemridge came to my house around about 6:25 that afternoon.
Well, that was way after the situation,
correct,
wasn't it?
Way after the situation.
What time did the incident allegedly happen?
Around 2 o'clock.
Okay.
2 o'clock that afternoon. And I was told they were here for a good while. I don't know how long, but I was told that they were here for a while. But they blocked the area off, so one could come in or out. Okay. Nothing but the officers that were in the immediate area when the incident happened. Even some of the other officers weren't allowed to come in. And of course, like I said, the civilians and the persons that brought him to the probation office that day, they weren't able to come in.
Well, if this thing happened at 2-something, why did Stemridge come to your house at 6-something?
Well, from what I think, it was a cover-up, just to make me think that it happened later that afternoon, to contradict what, like the bus driver said. You know, this happened earlier because he was en route to his route going over the MLK Bridge. The city bus driver told me that when he left from downtown en route to start his route, which was in the East Macon area, he was headed over the MLK Bridge. And that was when he happened to look to the left, he said, because he had a habit of always looking at the water level. And he said at that time it was low. And he said he happened to look to the left and he saw a large splash in the river. And that is, he said, when he called in and stated that because he had seen officers going to the area, maybe, and had heard about the probationary escaping, they were in chasing at that time, that maybe he fell in the river. And he told him to look in that area. Maybe somebody was drowning, or maybe it may have been the probationer. And he told him they told him to hold on for a minute. And they came back to the line and stated that he'd already been captured. Don't worry about it, and forget what he had seen.
Actually told him to forget what he had seen?
Right, that's right. Mm-hmm. Correct. Don't worry about it. Just forget it.
Did you ever consider having a psyche take a look at this situation?
Yes, I did. My inspiration of looking at court TV, trying to find out the causes of death, dealing with my son, because I didn't believe it was a drowning. I just happened to look at a show that showed a psychic that just happened to look at photographs and visit the area. And she made a conclusion of who did the murder. But anyhow, I got in contact with the psychic, and she asked me to send her a photograph before and after of my son. And in her visions, after viewing the photographs and I guess a little information about my son, her conclusion was that he was murdered, and there were like 12 officers involved. She mentioned 2 white officers. One was real tall, lanky, and wiry, salt and pepper hair. and she mentioned a shorter officer. She mentioned something about a flashlight, that he had been beaten severely, about a flashlight, and she also mentioned that he was shot several times. Excuse me.
Now, did this jive with, is that all of that?
It's
okay.
more, but I just can't remember all.
Does this jive with the information that you had picked up from homeless people and other people who was actually witnessing the situation?
It does. And the tall person, lanky person with the salt and pepper hair came to my mind was Stimbridge, the actual probation officer, and I was told that did the shooting. And from the information I was told that Roger Stimbridge actually did the shooting. He was the one that pulled the gun out. He was the one who shot him. As a matter of fact, a person that was at the probation office that day said when he was standing there when they brought my son out, and when he supposedly first took off running, Stimbridge pulled his gun out at that time to shoot him. He said, but people started running out in the area, so he didn't have a clear shot. And that's when the black officer was in the car in pursuit of him, and Stimbridge immediately came to this area. And that's when he said nextly he heard the radios going off at the probation office, stating that he had already been apprehended.
Now, tell me about the black officer who came to your house at about 6 o'clock or so with Stimbridge.
Yes.
Now, tell me about what he said and what he did.
He didn't say anything at first. Stimbridge came up to the door by himself. When I heard someone knocking, and he knocked. As a matter of fact, he knocked at the other door. I had a duplex at that time, and the young man came to the door, and he told him he was looking for Stephen Wathow, and I happened to hear that, and I said, I know it's Stephen, but it's not Stephen Wathow. And he said, Stephen Johnson. He said he was Stimbridge, the probation officer, and he had failed his drug test because his urine was so clear. And that gave him probable cause to arrest him. And he said he handcuffed him behind his back, and he escaped. And he just came to see if he came home. And that's when I told him he didn't come home. I said, he's not here. And I said, he don't usually come in until around 7 or close to 7. I knew it was about 6:25. I said, maybe in about 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes he'll be here. And at that time, the black officer never said anything at that time. Matter of fact, he came up just a few minutes later after Stimbridge, and Stimbridge got ready to leave, and then he turned around, and the black officer came up the stairs with him, and he said, may I search your house? And I said, I know he's not here, but you can search your house. I don't have a problem with that. And that's when Stimbridge walked through the house, through my foyer, just walked through and shined a flashlight. Then looking into the bedrooms, I told him, I said, here's Stephen's room. He didn't look in that room, didn't look in my bedroom, didn't look in the other side, didn't look anywhere, but in the bathroom, he just went and shined the light and said, Stephen, if you're in there, come out. Just in the bathroom, and then you got a whole house. Anyhow, on his
so
way,
it appeared as though he was just going through the motion,
right? Through the motion, because he was getting ready to leave. He was getting ready to leave at first. And that's when he came back, the black officer that was standing near, he didn't walk through. He said he just picked up his radio, I didn't hear it go off, and say he was spotted down by the ice house. And he left. But Stimbridge didn't immediately left. You know, he was like, Miss McGhee, if your son comes in, tell him to turn himself in. And then he left, but it didn't seem like he was in any hurry to leave. That was weird.
And that's 2 or 3 hours later.
Right. This is probably about 6:30 then.
Okay.
Yeah, and matter of fact, I called about 15 minutes later. I called to see if they had apprehended him, and I got to run around like, man, we don't know where your son is. You know, and I'm like, you know, I went out to the area myself. My son came in, my daughter, and the three of us went down to the area. They said by the ice house, so that's where we went, which is on the other side of the bridge. And we looked in that area, and we crawled in the area. We called his name, and of course, there was no answer. And we looked at that area. We didn't come to this area because we were told that's where it was spotted. So we went home. I waited probably about 30 minutes, and I started calling the police department and asked them was he apprehended. And their response they were very rude, stating that, man, we don't know where your son is. And I'm like, well, maybe you need to drag the river. Because I said I walked that area by the ice house, and I put my hands behind my back, and Stimbridge said he was handcuffed from the back. Maybe he fell in the river. And I said that's possible, but it was open. If they fell in there and they were chasing, they should have seen him. But he was very adamant about them not knowing where he was, and they didn't search him.